she's a mountain, then you're an ocean.
Hi, everybody. This is Lori, and this is our podcast, Inclusivi-TALKS Sustainability. And I'm the founder and CEO of Inclusivity, which is a company devoted to sustainable fashion, kindness, and justice. And our podcast is about all of those things and also about interviewing people who are following other paths of sustainability and creativity. So we like to call our podcast, it's basically all about creatives who are living sustainable lives and encouraging us to live sustainable lives. And today we have on our podcast Mike Hosey, who is the creator and writer of Think Sustainability. And so we're really, really happy to have you here, Mike. Thank you for being here.
No problem at all. I'm happy to be here.
So I always like to start asking people sort of when they first, in their life, when was the first time that sustainability even occurred to you? When did you first start thinking in that direction?
Sustainability probably dates back to, back when I was at school. I had a huge interest in this planet we live on. Had a holiday, was fortunate enough to go to a place in the Indian Ocean just after the 2004 Boxing Day tsunami, and obviously devastating disaster for that entire region. But going there sort of just after it happened, meeting and talking to people who lived through it and sort of the impact on their lives, particularly from a social point of view, that sort of sparked an interest, and seeing the environmental damage that was caused by it. Obviously, that was a natural event. There's not much we can do about earthquakes, but it was the idea of, we're on this massive planet and everything we do has an impact, and everyone's impacted by, the natural disasters, which are unfortunately getting worse nowadays.
Right.
So probably that was my sort of first spark of interest.
How old were you then?
I was only 11, actually.
And how did you get to go there? That's an unusual thing for an 11-year-old.
It's just a lucky family holiday, really.
Oh, okay.
It was in fact Christmas Day. I remember one of my grandparents coming over and asking, have you seen the news? And asking if we were going on holiday still, and we had no idea what he was talking about. Just sort of thought he was joking around, and then we see that much of the sort of Southeast Asia has been hit by this enormous tsunami. So yes, that's when it started, and then ever since then it's just been something I've read more about, just found so interesting, and then that's developed into sort of thinking more about sustainability. Recently I did a master's in sustainable development out in Australia, which again was a brilliant experience, and it's always been something I've been passionate about. It's for me, I want to put my mark on this planet, like I think many other people would like to do, and to me that's creating a sustainable planet that we can all live on and cohabit.
Yeah. Well, and I will just say that the reason we connected is that, we're planning a 28-day sustainability challenge in February. And when I looked up sustainable living and sustainable bloggers, your name came up. And so I found your site and I reached out to you, and you graciously agreed to talk with us and then also participate in the challenge, which is really great. Yeah. So as an 11-year-old, what did you do about that? Because 11-year-olds don't have a lot of power. So how did you kind of integrate that and use it to form the things that you did at that age?
Sort of even before that, just in school, I was interested by geography, countries. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always used to love knowing capital cities and love to be tested on that. I was a really fun 9-year-old and 10-year-old. It sort of started there, and it was that want to understand why. Why was the impact so bad there? Why did it happen? And I guess that's followed on to where I am today. Why are we in this situation that we are with climate change? With the plastic pollution, any other sustainability challenge that we face. It's why are we there? What can we do about it? I think for me, I like to know the answers, and sort of I guess that's what drives me really.
Mm-hmm. So you said you got a master's degree in Australia.
Yes.
And tell me more about the degree and what that focus of that was.
I mean, it varied. It was very sort of obviously sustainability and sustainable development is it's a fairly broad subject area. It's everything is related to sustainability, from the water that comes out of our taps to the jobs we do, the way we get around, and obviously on a much larger scale, the fuels we use for civilization, essentially. So yeah, it varies. How sort of what's going on in terms of climate change. So the issues there, how we can do manage that on a global scale, and then right down to a local scale. So I was doing modules on city management and how we could create more sustainable cities. And then I was also doing modules on sort of education and sustainability. How can we get the message across that what we need to do is vitally important, really, because I know it's a subject a lot of people can listen to, but it doesn't hit everyone. It can be difficult to engage some people.
Well, that's one of the goals with the challenge. I think you and I talked about a little bit, is to give people simple things that they can do that don't make them need to change their lives entirely. Because I think we need to start right where people are. And if that's take one thing out of your recycling bin and you reuse it, that's a start. And, by doing some of the research, for the book that I wrote, by doing some of the research, I found out that even those small things can actually add up. As people do them, they can add up to quite a big difference. And so I think that's incredibly important, that we meet people where they are and sort of figure out how to make this happen in a way that people will do it. Because saying we're going to do it and having these big lofty goals that no one follows doesn't get us anywhere.
No, and it can quite often make you feel very small.
Mm-hmm.
The something like the Paris Agreement's great, but for individual people,
Right.
They might think, oh, well, that's got nothing to do with me. That's on a much larger scale. And like you said, just doing one tiny thing can make a huge impact. If there's not 9 billion people on this planet, if everyone just did one thing, whether it's they all recycle their plastic bottles, or they turn the tap off while they're cleaning their teeth.
Right.
If 8 or 9 other billion people did that, that's a huge saving on whatever that change may be.
Two things that when I was doing the research is, turn your thermostat down by like 1 degree and take a 1 minute less shower.
Yeah.
Those are tiny things, but they actually become big things over time. Yeah. So if you were thinking about, what's your ideal sort of job? What do you want to do yourself as this passion unfolds and you become more involved? What do you want to do? Or do you not know? And it's okay to say, I don't really know.
Specifically, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I think sustainability as a whole is something that interests me, but to have a job that does all of that, you just wouldn't have the time. So anything within sustainability is something that I would love to do. The job I have now is in waste management. So it's something I never thought I'd go into, but with the people I work with, we look at how businesses can become more sustainable with the waste they produce, and it's more than just working with the business, but looking at the supply chain how are they receiving goods? How are they, packaging? All sorts of things like that. So, for me, that's been really interesting. And, I'm just getting started there.
Yeah. I think that the key, and this is a perfect example, is that we see everything through a lens of sustainability. Because if you start trying to view the world that way, then you see that waste management is actually a huge area where sustainability can have an impact and make a tremendous difference. And so I think it's perspective in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, what waste management is, it's always one of those things, out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
The minute you put something in a bin, you may not care whether it's, general waste, recycling, or any other sort of recycling bin. Once it's gone, you don't tend to think about where it goes. And yeah, coming up with ways, whether that's reducing waste at source, obviously that's the perfect sort of scenario, reusing it where we can, even if that's in the form of burning it for energy. It's not the cleanest way, but we get a good from it. So, and then, just getting as much away from landfill, and sort of, and obviously out the, the seas and the oceans and the wildlife as well, ensuring that it's managed properly.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like this whole sustainability thing is a very creative endeavor for you.
Yeah, it's, once I finished my degree, just my undergraduate degree, I think I started it just before I finished, but it just became sort of an output for the passion I have for sustainability and sustainable practices. I've gone through 10, 15 years of education and then, had nothing. And so, the reading, the, writing, sort of everything, it just became a brilliant output for me, sort of to express and, be creative and, try and, for me, make a bit of a difference before I knew what I wanted to do career-wise.
So Think Sustainability is a blog?
Yes.
And tell me how you started that, how you decided to do that.
Like I said, I think it was, I wanted to have that output where, because I wasn't, writing essays to do, at university or, doing anything sustainability related that way. I think a couple of friends had ideas about blogging and, doing something beyond university. And I just thought I'll give it a go, see how it goes. And here we are nearly 5 years later, I think.
Oh, wow.
It's still going. It has been a little bit on and off with university and working. It's it's a lot to keep going. But yeah, it started out as a blog. One day I'd love for it to become more. But yeah, I think that's, once I can sit down and find some time to plan and get writing again.
And what's your goal as far as how often ideally you'd like to put out a blog?
I mean, weekly ideally, just for myself, but I would love to have more people write as well. Anyone who's got that passion wants to share it. It was never, it was never meant to be just for me. It obviously started that way because I had, I wanted that way to put out the way I feel about sustainability. But it's always been somewhere where if anyone's got anything they want to write about, or anything that they're passionate about, like me, that they can share it there as well. It's just for me. I'd love to have more people on there.
And have you always been a writer? Has that been always something that you've enjoyed?
I wouldn't say I've always enjoyed writing. I wouldn't say I've always been a writer. I think it's something that I've sort of probably developed with with university and writing a lot there. Obviously, it's a bit different writing a sort of an essay or something like that. But sort of, the ideas are the same, the reading around the subject and, then writing about it. But yeah, I think after university, it just became, I could just put that passion somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So writing, I'm not a perfect writer at all. But it's something I enjoy, and I hope it's something that people enjoy reading too.
Mm-hmm. And do you have a certain process to your writing? Like, do you have an idea first? Do you sit down and just start writing? What's sort of your creative process when you write?
I think it tends to be maybe something I see on the news, something I read. If I see maybe a particular statistic that I kind of read and think, oh, that's a bit scary. It's, more people should know about this. Then that's tends to be a basis for what I write. And then it's just developing it from there. And, some people there's all these stats and the science behind climate change. We all know it's there, but a lot of people aren't particularly interested in the science. It's a little bit boring, and it doesn't, it may not affect them, or they may not think it affects them.
Right.
So for me, it's sort of starting there and building a more empathetic sort of story there that can help people relate and understand that actually, what is going on with climate change, as an example, does impact us all, and it's something that we can all take part in, however small that action is.
Yeah, I was inspired to start writing the book because I was looking into sustainable fashion because I started this company based on creating sustainable fashion. And it was so complicated as far as really getting to what is the best fabric even. So even that, there are layers and layers of story about, well, you start out thinking, well, recycled plastic, what a great idea. But then the little microfibers are still getting into the wash, and it's still problematic. And so I think what I found out during all of that was something I knew anyway, but that following the science is so important, and that the science evolves and changes, and that we kind of owe it to ourselves and owe the planet respecting that and trying to follow that as best we can. And the reason I wrote the book was because I felt like it's not really fair to ask everybody to do all that research. It's just too daunting, and it's not interesting to everyone. It's interesting to me, and I think it's interesting to you.
Yes.
But it's not interesting to everybody. But if you can say very simply, here's a very specific reason to cut back on eating meat. Try not to eat meat one day a week.
Mm.
If you can give someone a tip like that, and you can explain exactly what the reasons are, I think it's much easier to get behind that and not feel like you have to do a whole bunch of research behind it. So I think that's what it sounds like your blog is about too, is about presenting some information and then making it sort of interesting and palatable to the person who's reading it.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's something different from the news and other sources that some people may not find particularly interesting themselves.
Yeah. So when you're not immersed in discovering good solutions for waste and also sustainability, what are your passions? What do you enjoy doing?
Probably a lot of it is based around sport. Outside of sustainability, I've always been a fairly sporty person. Football or soccer has been a big thing for most of my life. Even now, it's not playing it quite as regularly as I used to, especially with lockdown and coronavirus at the moment. It's sort of not happened too much, but yeah, football or soccer has been a big one. Golf again, and just generally keeping fit. There's probably sort of my few other passions. All based around sport, really.
And do you think that also connects you? I mean, soccer is played mostly outside, correct?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that also connects you with nature and makes you even more want to protect the world?
Yeah. No, I'd agree with that, and I think in a similar way to story writing. Sport can be a great way to get a message across.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of, you may not have heard of, but there's a team over here in the UK called Forest Green Rovers. I can't remember what the owner's name is now, but his goal is to create a completely sustainable football club. So they've recently put in an offer for a completely wooden stadium where it's all going to be made from recycled woods, completely powered by solar. They've got already got electric charging points at football grounds. I think it's completely vegan menu for the sort of snacks and everything that the players eat. It's really incredible. It's definitely something worth researching if you get the time.
I was going to say I definitely want to research that, because I would reach out to him and connect around the challenge and around. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. So if this is an unusual question maybe, but if you had to, well, I want to preface it by saying the reason I asked this question is that I think part of wanting to live a sustainable life and part of wanting to protect the world is to have places in the world that just feel connected and safe and holy to you, whatever holy means to you. So I want to know for you, if you need a place to go that just feels, what would that be for you?
Ooh. That's, to pick one place is difficult. Where I live here in the UK, I'm quite lucky. I'm near enough just over the road from a national park, 20 minutes from the sea. So for me, being near the sea has always been a big thing. Even when I was in Australia, I lived in Perth, and even there I lived 20 minutes from the sea. So I guess, anywhere to sort of relax and take a breath has definitely been the sea. I haven't found anywhere more relaxing than that. I think I used to even I'd get up early and just drive down to the sea, and that would be my morning start. It was that's definitely somewhere I'll always feel relaxed, and I guess even at home as well, just comfortable.
But I think for most of us, or for a lot of people, it's good to have sort of a magic place. If you really just need someplace that reminds you that the world is amazing and reminds you why you want to be careful and take care of things. I think to find that place is really important. So the sea is a wonderful one.
Yeah.
So if you were where you are now, having your master's degree and working in the way you are and doing the blog, if you were giving sort of any advice to people who are maybe a little younger and are just sort of entering this, maybe another 11-year-old who's in a situation that you were in when you were 11 and sees this destruction and suddenly says, okay, I now have to pay more attention to this. What would your advice be to them? What would you say to them?
Find something you're passionate about. I think if you can find that, then it's easy to talk to people about it, to eventually write about it, to study it, to learn more. It's it can be scary, I think, especially at the moment when you think the wildfires in Australia and the USA, sort of California, flooding in countries all over the world, obviously a pandemic, even that's related to the way that humans interact with the environment. It can be scary, and it can feel too much. I guess look for the good news. Look for something that isn't all doom and gloom. There are plenty of positive stories out there. It can be overwhelming, and I know I know sort of cases of anxiety and things like that, particularly in younger people, is becoming more of an issue. And I think some of that does have to do with things like climate change, because it can all sound bleak, but if you can find a passion for wanting to make change, no matter what that is, that can just be in your family. Having that passion can go a long way. Just follow that, and look for the good news in all the bleakness as well.
I think that's just wonderful advice, because we know science teaches us that to counteract negative messages, you need to see at least it's 3 to 5 good messages. So every time you hear one of those negative messages, it impacts you much more strongly than positive messages do.
Yeah.
And it's probably to do with safety. And, historically, it's probably to do with needing to pay attention to, the bear coming towards you. But what that does is it actually, kind of affects our brain and affects the things our brain responds to and affects our mood and how we interact with others. And so I think that advice is wonderful, because if we can train ourselves to focus on the positive things, it actually will help in every way. It helps physically and with relationships, and allows us to move forward and keep doing things. And I like that you said there are positive stories all over. There are positive interactions. This interaction with you is lovely. And so there are positive human interactions all the time. And we just need to note them, pay attention to them, remind yourself of them at the end of the day, so that you don't get into the spiral of negativity, which certainly can happen right now.
Yeah.
So I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
If you had to define, and this is another kind of tough question, but if you had to define either what your purpose is or what's behind your purpose. So what inspires you to move forward? What is it that is sort of at the core of that for you? What would you say it is?
I think for me, it's the want to create a better world. And I know it probably sounds quite cliche. I know it's a thing for, I don't want to say people my age, but younger people tend to, or from, working a 9-to-5 job isn't it for everyone. Some people can't do that. Some people want to have more of a purpose. So for me, it's
it's creating a better world.
Yeah, it's feeling that I've put my mark. I wouldn't go as far as it's creating a legacy or anything like that, but putting a mark on something and say that I made a difference there, which I guess is a thing with my blog. To me, if one person reads that and let's say I wrote one about reducing water consumption, if one person reads that and they have a shower for a minute less, or turn the tap when they're cleaning the teeth or washing up or anything like that, then to me that's enough for me to keep writing. And I guess it comes back to looking for that good news. Whilst I've spent 5 years writing, and we don't seem any better off than we were 5 years ago on a global scale. But if looking at a smaller scale, maybe people have made changes with what I've said. I know even some of my friends, they've cut down on their meat consumption, even if it's just 1 day a week. And little things like that, it does make it all feel worth it. So it's just wanting to have that positive impact. As long as I know I'm doing that, that's enough.
Yeah. And I don't think it sounds at all cliche. I think it is, if you mean it, then it's everything. I think that is how we create a sustainable world. I think it's the only way for us to go forward is for us to literally start thinking of us and we and the connectedness and not me. And I think that is trying to leave a good imprint on the world.
Yeah.
So I don't think I think I understand why you say it sounds cliche, because people say it all the time. But if it is really at your core, and it really is, then it's, I think, profound
Yeah.
to want to live that way.
Yeah. No, definitely.
So is there anything else in your life that you would like to talk with us about right now? Because I'm open to anything. And I have one more specific question for you, but also anything else you'd like to tell us that's coming up for you, or something, a story that you did that you're a blog that you did that you're particularly proud of, anything else that you'd like to share with us?
Trying to think about that. I mean, for me, I guess one other thing is have a look at what's going on in the local community. Before I, started Think Sustainability and went out there, I didn't realise just how many like-minded people were 10 minutes down the road from me. Beyond the people I went to school with and studied with. There didn't seem like there was much, but when through Think Sustainability, I've found some incredible people doing some incredible things, and those people are everywhere. You may not be aware of them, you may not know them, but have a look, because there's one person who may be good to share with you, but she's been running a beach cleaning, I think it's just an Instagram page. I think she's on Facebook as well. But that's all she does. But what she does is inspiring. It's just a bucket a day. And
I love that.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of getting involved with some of the work she's doing, and just any organised beach cleans that she's done. And so I guess for anyone listening, it's just have a look at what's going on in the community, and if you want to get involved, you don't necessarily have to start something yourself.
Right.
There's plenty of good work and good projects out there that you can get involved in, even if it's once a month, once a year. But I think that's probably the only thing to add.
Okay. So then my last story for you, and I think that is a wonderful thing to add, is that in your own community, you can find people, you can find organizations that do work that you love, and you can donate, you can volunteer, you can ask them what they need. Because they may need help stuffing envelopes to send out, and they need help sending an email out. So there's all sorts of ways that you can get involved, and I think that's a beautiful piece of advice. The last thing I always like to ask people is if they will tell us a story from their life. And the way I sort of preface this is to say it doesn't have to be a story about sustainability. It doesn't have to be a story with a lesson. It can be either of those things. But the goal is that it's a story that if you were just telling someone about you, it's a story that feels like it's yours and something you'd like to share with us. So that's my last question for you is, can you tell us a story from your life?
Okay. Where to start? I mean, when I was thinking about this question, I did think, back to when I was 11 and getting started, and delving into this passion that I found that I had. I think, if probably to expand on that, being in that area of the world, and being lucky enough to be out there, we got to go snorkeling, just not too far out, but in the Indian Ocean, and we went out there with a marine biologist. Can't remember what his name is now, being 15 years ago or so, but he was an incredibly inspiring person. And when we went out there, on a boat, I was only 11, never been swimming out in the sea like that, but I had my little waterproof camera, and I was diving down, taking pictures of all these fish, and I just found it the most incredible experience. And then even after that, when we were back on dry land, we went to see him, later in the evening and the next day, and I always just wanted to know more. I've always been someone that's sort of, particularly when it comes to the environment, just sort of wanted to jump in. And like I said earlier, wanted to know more. And adding to what I said earlier, that's where my sort of passion came from. And yeah, it's just a very happy time for me. So I think that's probably that was a start for me. So it's something that does mean a lot.
Yeah. Did your parents, just one more question that triggered for me is, has your family been pretty supportive about your interests and your passions?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They my dad's actually gone almost completely vegan.
Okay.
I say almost because he did have some turkey at Christmas. But yeah, they've been so supportive. I'm not quite there yet, but it's more of a, I don't want to say convenience thing. I think with my job, I'm out on the road a lot, and access to vegan and even vegetarian food isn't always particularly easy. But they've been incredibly supportive, and they're actually looking at building a completely sustainable home at the moment as a sort of a final project before they look at retiring. So that's something I've sort of helped them out with a little bit, and very excited to see what comes from that.
Yeah, I will be interested to learn about that too, because that's definitely my hope for the future. When we decide it's time to build another house, that's definitely something we're going to be looking at. So I will ask you questions about that when that comes up.
Yeah, please do. I'm sure there'll be a blog about it at some point.
So Mike, thank you so much for being here. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you and really exciting to connect. And my goal for the year, my intent for 2021 is that we create, or that 2021 becomes the year of sustainable living, and that this is the tipping point. And I think that's what we're shooting for. That's what we should be aiming for. And I think it's the right time, it's the right moment, and it has to happen.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to have you, and I mean, to have you here on this journey is fantastic.
Yeah, no, pleasure to be here, and I'm so glad we've connected, and hopefully it's the start of a lot of good work between the two of us.
I think it absolutely is. Thank you. And everybody, thank you for listening. This is Inclusivi-TALKS, and I'm Lori, and our guest today was Mike, and his blog is Think Sustainability. So check it out. All right. Thanks a lot. Bye.
If she's a mountain